Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. We're just going to give it a minute or two to allow people to join this webinar on how we're supporting innovation in telecoms across UK government ahead of Mobile World Congress. So thank you very much for joining for those who are on the line already, and we'll just give it a few moments to allow people to filter in. Okay, well, I think we'll start in the interest of time, and I suspect we may have a few more colleagues who join us as we go. But thank you for joining today and for giving us your lunchtime session. Hopefully this is something to whet your appetite, literally and metaphorically, before Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. My name is Catherine Page, and I'm the Deputy Director in the Department for Science and Innovation and Technology, who's responsible for future telecoms, one of the critical technologies that we see in the UK. And we're meeting today with representatives from across the UK government and relevant related agencies to talk about how we support innovation in these cutting edge telecoms technologies, and looking ahead to Barcelona, how we will be represented at Mobile World Congress and hope to use that to spur collaboration in international innovation in these technologies. So we have a great panel today, and thank you very much to them all for joining. So you're going to hear from Graham Zebedee from the Department for Business and Trade, Director for Science and Technology. You will hear from Gary Cutts, who is Executive Director for Digital and Technologies in Innovate UK, and also from Henny Sands, who's the Head of Telecoms in the UK Space Agency. So lots of different perspectives on how we're supporting innovation in telecoms in the UK. From a Department for Science and Innovation and Technology perspective, I'll just say briefly a little bit about what we do to support these technologies and how we see them. So many of you may have heard this before, but just so that everyone is on the same page about what we mean by future telecoms. When we say that in the UK, we mean all evolutions of the networks that will carry data in future, which we know are crucial underpinnings for our growth, and also really important in terms of the security of both our critical national infrastructure and also underpinning the general security of our economy and society, which is why they're a critical technology for the UK. We in DCIT are responsible overall for the policy towards these technologies that will go into those networks. And we work to try and create a supportive policy environment for innovation, to set an overall level of ambition for these technologies, where we see the UK as being really world leading and having some great strengths in research and innovation, and to work with international partners to see how we can build on those strengths where we have complementary strengths with other international partners to really maximize our position in global markets in the future and in the general shaping of these technologies through global standards, because we know this is a highly global industry and we can't do this alone. So in DCIT, we fund research and development to that end. You're going to hear some of that from Gary and from Henny. We have in recent years funded quite a considerable programme of work to try to diversify the telecom supply chain through our £250 million Open Networks programme. And a number of these projects will be at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. We have funded the next generation of these technologies through the Future Telecoms Tech Mission Fund that is delivered by UK Research and Innovation, a £70 million fund that funds both early stage research and innovation through UK business consortia. And we're also taking forward other programs such as our spectrum sandboxes, which look at, for example, how we can share spectrum in future. We know this is a very limited resource, and future networks will require us to be more innovative in the resource that we have and how we use it. And also things like the 5G innovation region, so how we're driving the take-up of these technologies in local areas to improve public services and to drive growth across the UK. So that's what we're doing in DCIT, but we very much try and work across government, and I think it's really great that we'll have an opportunity to hear from the panelists that we have here about what they're all doing in their respective organisations to really drive innovation and growth in these technologies. All of this is obviously a sort of run-up to Barcelona, and I hope you've got your hotel rooms booked already. It's a busy place, but a really good opportunity, I think, for forging greater collaboration between the UK and international counterparts. This is the first of a series of 3 webinars that we're running ahead of that, to give you a flavour of what there will be at the UK Innovation Pavilion. I'll tell you more about the other webinars at the end of the session, but this one is the first of a series of 3, so please join us for the full set. We will give you an outline of what each of our organisations is doing to support innovation, and there'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end if you have any. Please post them in the Q&A box, and then we'll try to get to as many of those as we can. I should say at the outset that for those of you who have questions about funding opportunities in particular, we are at a particular time at the moment with the government spending review process, so you'll recognise that we won't be able to answer specific questions on funding opportunities that might be coming in the future. But we're of course able to talk to you about the types of programmes that we have funded to date, if you have any questions about those. But there will be some limitations on what we can say in that regard. But please do have a think as we go along, and we'll come to questions at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to start with Gary, and I'm going to turn to you to ask, Gary, how in Innovate UK you're supporting innovation in cutting-edge telecoms technologies and adjacent digital technologies that are relevant to this sphere. So I'll hand to you, Gary.
Super. Thanks so much, Catherine. And if I can, there's quite a lot of things I'd like to say in limited time, but I do want to start a little bit big picture and set the context of Innovate UK for those who may not know. So Innovate UK is part of UK Research and Innovation, a DCIT-sponsored government agency. And UK Research and Innovation covers the full gamut of things, from fundamental research, academic research in universities, right through to industrial innovation application. And I think that theme is really important for telecoms. Innovate UK itself is very much the innovation agency. We see ourselves as supporting business-led innovation across many, many sectors in all regions of the UK. And our mission is to help companies grow from innovative ideas through startup to achieving scale and achieving real impact. And I just want to talk about sectors for a minute or two before we graduate into more detail here. I said there we support many sectors. We do. I think increasingly we are taking a view of, what are the sectors with the highest growth and or the highest impact across societal benefits. Those things are often hand in hand, of course. People purchase services that have societal impact to them. Also, we are increasingly aligning to very clear UK government objectives on driving growth, critical sectors and critical technologies. Future telecoms is a key example of that as a critical sector that does all of those things. It's high growth potential. The UK is well positioned and it does have societal impact. And before I kind of go into Innovate UK and what we are doing and will continue to do in this space, I do just want to pick up the point you said there, Catherine. Really important to talk about wider sectors here. From my time in the innovation sphere, I think the last thing anyone should be doing is narrowing down too quickly to narrow confines of technology. Increasingly, we're talking really complex systems with interdependencies. So within Innovate UK, in particular into the domain that I'm leading right now, there are a number of other things that are critical. So we are funding adjacent technologies, really large programs in artificial intelligence, things like digital twins, underpinning digital technologies, systems, and some of the infrastructure. And to give an example from my last job, we're even into things like advanced air traffic management solutions. Now, why I mentioned those is those advanced air traffic management solutions will utterly be dependent on digital technologies and telecoms. So seeing the underpinning technologies that feed through into telecoms is important, but also having a sector view of where telecoms as a set of technologies will give value to other sectors and go to market. That's really important. So we're all about providing market access for those technology companies. A cornerstone of what we do, and people tend to know Innovate UK for this, is providing grants and funding through businesses on the growth journey. But there's a lot more things that we see ourselves as doing. We have quite strong technical teams in all domains, including telecoms, and their job is to understand the underpinning technology, but really to know the industry, the key players, what is it they're looking to do, and act as that interface between various technologies and different sectors, but also to act as a good interface between innovators and the wider government ecosystem. And it is a wide ecosystem, not just various government departments, but also there are regulatory developments and regulators. There are a number of other bodies, such as accelerator catapults, that provide services. So that integration role by technical teams is important. We work very strongly on collaborative R&D, encouraging companies to work together. And we have a number of other activities around challenges and missions, driving fundamental, ambitious, specific goals by multi-year programs of work. So a lot of things that Innovate UK does. And I'll just mention before I move on, a large part of that is creating the networks of innovators to work together to share ideas. So this concept of convening communities and including and encouraging a free and open transfer of knowledge between different players in the ecosystem. We see real value in that. And finally, as a generic thing, the concept of business growth and supporting industry through growth. So we have Innovate UK's business growth team, whose job is to work often with individual companies and help them charter a course through that growth territory, including into the business development, funding, and some of those market opportunity accesses. So if I just cover a little bit some of the telecom specifics. So we have in the past, going back a few years, done large activity, working, as Catherine said, working on behalf of government departments and funded by them for DCIT and DCMS, delivering the original 5G testbeds of the UK. Under the Future Telecoms Technology Missions Fund, there was a number of CR&D projects. We've run a number of what we now call contracts for innovation. They used to be called SBRI. Contracts for innovation is probably a better term. And they are where we work typically with other public bodies in that procurement of emerging, still technically developing services. So contracting for innovative services that are still being developed with government agencies, a really good way of accelerating innovation into application. And also built a number of collaborative networks for innovation as well across telecoms. And latterly, and maybe we'll come back to this in the later questions. And again, I think, Catherine, you did cover this, the concept of the UK absolutely looking to develop UK competence capability and make value from everything from our world-leading academic networks through to the vast number of SMEs, fast-moving tech startups. But we are still globally orientated. It's not a UK-only program. So we've been heavily engaged in running a number of global programs, taking UK companies and helping make the partnerships with other countries and then try and give market access, particularly in other countries around the world. So I'll pause there, Catherine. I think that's quite a long speech, and happy to take kind of follow-up questions and directions, I guess.
Thanks, Gary. That's really helpful. I know that we've been working together with your team very closely, including on the international programs that you mentioned, and that there have been some really positive examples recently of missions to Japan, to the US and to India. So I think that's a really great example of how through Innovate UK, you are supporting some of those UK startups and companies to really engage with their international counterparts. And can you say a little bit more about maybe perhaps why you think international collaboration is important in driving innovation for UK businesses from Innovate UK's perspective?
Oh, yes, I mean, there's probably quite a lot to unpack there. I mean, I'll start with the, this comes a little bit to my background as well in aviation. the regulatory frameworks really matter. The world, does not need to have country by country standards and regulations that hampers growth. So we have to engage in setting up the international standards and the international regulatory frameworks to allow us to work with each other. And that's a two-way street, but that certainly allows UK companies to export and work. So I think that framework is quite important. Second thing I would add, and again, we see this not just in telecoms, but across the whole innovation front, the concept of collaboration. Companies having part of the technology solution, but in a complex domain often where you need to partner with other people to create a total product to go to market. And we're really interested in the opportunity of partnerships, both within the UK and across country boundaries, to create these kind of collaborative, innovative enterprises that can go to market. Really important that we do that and see that the UK is a happy partner for many of the countries to go to market. So lots of things there. And then obviously the final point would be fundamentally, these are absolutely global markets. The fundamental underpinning technologies of telecoms, absolutely, exportable. They are, the physics behind them don't care about country applicability. So once you develop capabilities for one market, the ability to move to other markets, and potentially we could argue they're more rapid export opportunities than some of the more hardcore physical products. Lots of the digital products can create products quickly. Hope that makes a bit of sense. It's really exciting working internationally for us.
Thanks very much, Gary. No, that's great. So UK companies that are going out to Mobile World Congress should be looking to not just hopefully find some customers, but also partners for innovation as they develop their products and services, and be talking and thinking about how they can work together in shaping and influencing that regulation in an international domain as well, and standards, I think, is what you're saying. Final question before I move on to Henny. If people want to find out more about what Innovate UK is doing and opportunities, or engage with any of your leads, what's the best way for them to do that?
So we can, I'm sure we can provide links, but I think if anyone just searches for Innovate UK or Innovate UK Business Connect, and you'll find by the Business Connect website service, their knowledge of all of our competitions, but also there are a lot of technical community kind of resources on there as well, where people can find a way to break into and make community networks. So yes, Innovate UK Business Connect is the right place to go.
Wonderful. Thanks, Gary. And I can see there's a couple of questions that are starting to come in the Q&A box. So we'll come back to those when we've been through all of the panelists. But thanks very much to those who are posting. And if you've got more thoughts that have been prompted by what Gary said, please do put those questions in the chat. I'm going to turn next to Henny. Henny, I think you were leading the way in terms of Mobile World Congress last year and representation from a government space agency. Which is really great to see the UK pioneering in that regard. I've said the way that we think about INDECIT, future telecoms or future communications, absolutely involves space and satellite communications. How do you see this from UK Space Agency, and how are you supporting innovation in these types of communications technologies?
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. I think it's a really important observation. So it shows just how far the sector's changed. That last year we were one of the leading government partners at Mobile World Congress. This year, I think by meter of exhibition space, we are the largest partner, and really it speaks to how far the satellite industry's changed, but also how much acceptance there is now within the telecoms industry on the role of satellite. And there's a real convergence. We talk a lot about convergence, but there's a real convergence in thinking about what role satellite has to play and the scale of that role and how it would achieve that. When I started a few years ago going to Mobile World Congress, people would say, "Why is a space agency here?" And I think this year we'll see an awful lot of satellite operators have a really well-defined presence at Mobile World Congress, as well as ourselves. So I'll talk a little bit about why the agency is interested and why specifically my team are involved. And when we think about the space agency, we think about exploration and science. But running in parallel to that, we've been developing a really strong commercial support series of mechanisms for space and for satellite communication in particular. And two of our agency priorities really speak to that. So our North Star metric and our key priority is catalyzing investment. We're really fortunate in the sector that there's really high returns on investment. So we get around 10-to-1 net returns for every pound that the government spends on programs. And so we're guided by that North Star metric. We've also got the new challenge of prioritizing services for citizens. So being able to support convergence pieces and deliver new ubiquitous connectivity services for citizens in the UK and people around the world is really an amazing opportunity for the agency to pursue. And we're really keen to join forces with department colleagues and across Whitehall to be able to do that. In terms of the satellite communications team that I lead at the agency, our strategy is increasingly focused on supporting convergence. So all of the developments that we see in the sector recognise the importance of future telecoms as the key driver for growth in the space sector. And that's really a change from very large single systems in geostationary orbit to very complex low Earth orbit satellites that really deliver telecom services at a scale, speed and capacity that is beyond expectation, I think, from just a few years ago. And so yeah, for the team here, we're exhibiting at Mobile World Congress. We're joining HMG Presence to ensure that satellite operators and technology providers can access the future telecoms market, and really so that we can help them on that road to full convergence. We see largely that this is also a good opportunity for us as government to demonstrate administrative convergence. So it's not just system convergence, it's not just standardization, but also across government we speak with one voice and we have one goal to develop those interoperable networks of networks. So being able to facilitate that is really key. Our strategy is to continue to support the UK as a hub for global operators to come to the UK and roll services out of the UK. Historically, the UK has been a great place to do that, and we see there's still a lot of interest, both from a sort of location place in the world, but also accessing some of the skills developed out of satellite communications around operations. And then beyond that high-level operator piece, we're really interested in supporting the development of direct-to-device. And that's direct-to-device technologies for mobile phones, but also for IoT. And we see this as a really amazing opportunity, really, to connect billions of people around the world using mobile connectivity and hundreds of billions of machines, and to really change the nature of connection for people. To support that, we're looking at the commercialisation piece. We're looking at how SATCOM can converge at a technical level through standards. But we're also supporting UK industry to develop the advanced payloads that are going to be needed to operate that network of networks, particularly making sure that satellite communication networks can stay up to speed with the expectations that Future Telecoms has for them. So that's making sure they have onboard processing power. They have free space optical links between them to reduce latency and to converge on meeting the user requirements of all Future Telecoms customers. And the UK Space Agency is really well placed in this. I know Gary was talking about the importance of international collaboration there. Through our international work, we're in a really good position through partners like the European Space Agency, through our partnerships in North America, to develop and facilitate some of the international collaborations needed in supply chains, in operator networks, but also to bring partners together to fund in-orbit demonstrators. So it's all very well to say that these systems are going to happen, but we know that operators, that manufacturers and technology providers all need to see them working in practice, not just to check that they work, but to optimize them for commercial rollout as well. So yeah, the key areas of interest for us at this year's Mobile World Congress are around that broader convergence piece and attracting operators to the UK, making sure that we have the technology to support that in advanced payload capability. But we do have a funding call at the moment delivering new kinds of remote connectivity through private 5G networks. So that area is something that we're really keen to explore with exhibitors and attendees at Mobile World Congress, looking at what kinds of hybrid solutions we can roll out and what kinds of new markets and connectivity we can support. And then the last piece is sort of leading into our traditional space sector as well. So we work on lunar and deep space communication, and we work with colleagues around the UK and globally to deliver standardization in those networks. And that's currently looking at 3GPP standardization for the lunar surface. So we're keen to demonstrate that these new space markets like lunar and deep space are real opportunities for the future telecoms community as well.
Thank you very much, Henny. Lots in there, and I think it's really clear how exciting this is as you say, converging sector between satellite communications and mobile terrestrial communications. Can I ask, how do you think we are positioned in the UK in that respect, and how I've been fortunate enough to see some of the strengths in the industry that you have in clusters like Harwell in Oxfordshire. How do you see the UK strengths in really sort of maximising that convergence as we look to build on our traditional mobile telecom strengths and marry that into a new world of satellite?
Yeah, it's a good question. So through our work with existing operators, and in the UK, we're really fortunate to have a really solid set and growing set of operators, space-based operators. We have seen that proximity and access to operators really drives the convergence piece. If companies are able to showcase their products, able to speak with the operators like we'll have the opportunities at Mobile World Congress, that's what drives the integration of systems and services. So for us, those two pieces around the operator and the advanced payload, they speak to our strengths. So we're not doing anything we haven't done before. We're just taking it in a new direction, really. So yeah, we've seen that the operators can be drawn to the UK based on the kinds of payload technologies, and then they stay because we've got pools of people able to deliver the operations themselves. So yeah, that's a really important piece for us.
Thanks, Henny. And I can see there's already interest in the chat in the funding call that you mentioned. So I think if we can put the link to that in the chat as we're continuing the discussion, that would be really helpful. And then participants on the call can take a look at that. But thank you. I'm going to turn now to Graham. And Graham, we've heard about how we're supporting innovation in the UK through Innovate UK, through UK Space Agency. We're growing these companies, we're building on our strengths in some of the fundamental research. Can you tell us a bit more about what the Department for Business and Trade is doing to help those companies to grow and export, and also what you do at events like Mobile World Congress to try and attract investment into the UK?
Yeah, certainly. And thank you very much, Catherine. And hi, everyone. So yeah, Department for Business and Trade is, as the name suggests, the department for the whole of the economy. So we own the industrial strategy, which is a program which will decide which are the priority growth sectors for the economy. Digital and technologies, more broadly defined, is one of those. The subsectors within that are not yet defined. I'm very hopeful that telecoms and space will be well represented in that. They certainly are extremely important, as you know very well, and has already been said. So, in order to help those sectors, the Department for Business and Trade has funding programs. We fund research and development in a number of areas. We open up overseas markets through trade policy tools, including trade agreements. We attract investment into the UK through collaborating with the Prime Minister's office and the Treasury and something called the Office for Investment. We regulate, we do the big blocks of regulation. So not the sectoral regulation on, for example, telecoms, but the regulation of employment markets. We attract talent into the UK, engage on skills, run the competition policy regime, which everyone is subject to, and do a number of other more specific interventions, including really helping companies to export, because we recognize that exporting is, for many companies, a difficult task, particularly when you're starting out, particularly when you're going into a new market or into a new sector. So that's why I was, extremely pleased to hear, and this is only quite recently, that the UK was actually the #1 country in the whole world in telecoms services exports. Which is fantastic testament to the level of innovation in the sector, and also the strength of some of our larger, more established companies as well. So this is clearly an area of UK strength. To further support that, we run training programs to help companies to understand the business of exporting. We connect them with foreign buyers. We have a network of people in British embassies and other missions around the world of about 1,400 people in 100 countries. And between all those people, there's not many potential opportunities that we can't get to know about for UK companies to export in some way or other. We use events like the Mobile World Congress. I think they're a really important part of our overall offer, not just on exporting, but also on attracting inward investment into the UK, which is an extremely important part of what we do to help companies to come to the UK initially and then to scale up there and attract talent there. But also, it's a very useful shop window for the UK. So to exhibit the strength of our sector for buyers from other countries who just might not have thought of the UK for whatever reason before, and so they can see the strength of our commercial offer. These events are very important for that overall projection of what the UK does, but also being able to connect particular foreign-based companies to particular UK ones, so that they can have that initial conversation for which a more detailed commercial discussion can follow later. And for our ministers, and most senior officials to be able to be there and facilitate those sort of interactions as well. So let me leave it there, but very happy to take any questions further about that. Back to you, Catherine. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. That's really helpful. And maybe just to ask your advice, really, for companies that are attending Mobile World Congress, if they're looking to use it as a platform to be more successful in exporting, do you have any advice for them on how they might make best use of their time at something like Mobile World Congress and how they can work with you to do so?
Yeah, sure. I mean, many companies will be well versed in how best to approach trade shows and trade fairs of this kind. But for those of you who are not, I mean, just be out there and be really active. So having a stall can be very useful, particularly if it's if it's an eye-catching stall with something for people to see and do and sort of experience in some way. You can get a lot of very useful passing trade from that way, and we've seen really concrete opportunities get realized through that sort of slightly chance encounter. But you don't need to have that. You can absolutely be a visitor to other people's stalls and to take part in the discussion fora that there are at MWC, and just learning in a more general sense about the direction the market's going in, and it can be just as useful actually as the more specific one-to-one links that you make, because it can allow companies to orient their future kind of search efforts towards what are going to be the most fruitful opportunities. So be open to all the different ways in which MWC can help you, not just touring the halls, but also getting a broader sort of education about what might be the best thing for your business in future.
Thanks, Graham. Definitely agree with that. And on the basis of my experience of Mobile World Congress last year, plan your time, because there's so much to see and so many people to meet that it's difficult to just turn up and expect it to happen. You want a bit of serendipity, but I think good planning also goes into that. Just before I sort of turn to the wider panel for a bit of a more interactive discussion, we've talked about the export proportion of your work, but on the inward investment, that's clearly been a very big priority for the government. Can you say a little bit for any of the overseas companies that we might have on the line, what you think makes the UK an attractive place to invest in sectors like telecoms or advanced digital technologies?
Absolutely, and it is a extremely good place to invest. So there's the basic building blocks first. We've got, the competitive tax regime, the fantastic R&D and universities base, the proportionate regulation generally, and the availability of skills both domestically produced and through an effective immigration regime, and that allows the UK to be usually the most years with the biggest attractor of foreign direct investment in Europe, and sometimes secondarily to the United States globally. So so the basics are there in this particular sector. Then frankly it's the bit that you and other colleagues have mentioned on this call, the really proactive approach to supporting companies, I think, is a really big draw, and the regulation of this sector in particular, I think, is a really really strives to be pro-growth. You can't say that, I think, of every sector. That doesn't mean that other very important things are ignored. National security, the interests of the consumer, other public policy objectives, but that a really intelligent balance is drawn between them, and that things are clear and transparent and not changed readily. And I think that's extremely important. And our investment efforts are always completely mindful of the fact that not every foreign vendor of telecoms equipment is the same, if I can put it like that. Some are more trustworthy than others. So it is it's an investment attraction effort which is really cognizant of those broader geopolitical dynamics as well. So do please if you're considering investment in the UK, our website which you can easily find, we can put links in the chat, for the Department of Business and Trade can guide you through that with a really good sort of one-stop shop service, which will help you decide whether the UK is for you. We hope it will be, but also if you do decide that, how to go about it and put you in contact with people with whom you can have that sort of detailed conversation about your needs so that we can take it further. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Graham. Well, hopefully that has given you a bit of a flavour, sort of regardless of your interest, whether you're a UK company or researcher looking to go to MWC, or whether you're an overseas company who's looking to collaborate with us in the UK or invest in the UK. Between Gary, Henny and Graham and ourselves in the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, hopefully you'll have something there to talk to us about, and we'd be very keen to talk to you. Hopefully this also demonstrates how we are also in the UK seeking to join up and collaborate across government and across the relevant agencies in this field. I think, as Gary was saying to start with, you know, we see this as a really dynamic, exciting technology area where there's a lot changing. And I think that a lot of the ways that this technology is changing also plays to UK strengths in software. It's been a very busy and exciting week for the UK more broadly on AI this week, and we see how AI is being used in telecoms and converging and depends on telecoms as well. And we've already touched on that in the space domain as well. So that's before we even get on to quantum, but we know that's coming too. So hopefully that's whet your appetite a bit. I can see that we have some questions in the chat, and we've also posted various links to where you can find more information on each of the different organisations that we've touched on here, and the live funding call that Henny has out. So let's turn to some of those questions. I think there's a few that focus on particularly collaboration with Europe on innovation. So question about how Horizon Europe involvement will be strengthened at MWC in 2025 between the UK and European partners, and will the best of UKRA be scalable into Horizon Europe? Gary, I don't know whether you want to take that initially, and then I might say something as well from a DSIT perspective.
No, thank you, Catherine. And in some ways, it's not a massively specific answer, but I think we went through a period where Horizon Europe became a little bit confused of, could people collaborate in there? Could they not? Really important we send a message. Absolutely, we see that as a sensible route, and we would expect UK companies, and we would support UK companies to do things under UK funding regimes and to absolutely look for opportunities in Horizon Europe. Yeah, so really supportive of that and look to see what we can do to bring that more to the fore.
Thanks, Gary. I guess I would echo that as well. I mean, obviously, Mobile World Congress is in Barcelona, so it's a great place to be meeting European partners. And I know that there are a number of Spanish partners as well who are leading work in Horizon Europe around telecoms and through the Smart Networks and Services joint undertaking initiative that's particularly relevant there. But it's obviously, it's a World Congress, so there's opportunities for collaboration beyond Europe too, and we hope that you'll maximise all of those opportunities. In DSIT, we have been seeking to encourage as much UK participation as possible now that it is open and we are fully associated again to the Horizon Europe programme. UK Telecoms Innovation Network has run a brokerage event in the last number of weeks to try and bring together and encourage consortia forming between the UK and European counterparts ahead of the next call. And there's actually, I believe, another webinar specifically thinking about that from the 6G perspective and the industry association associated with the Smart Networks and Services joint undertaking. So look out for that. And again, if we have the link to that, we can possibly post it in the chat. But I think it's a great opportunity now that we're reassociated to Horizon to be really making the most of that partnership. Maybe following on from that, I think there's a question again about European cooperation, particularly ESA. And Henny, I don't know if you want to take this one. So how will the international role with ESA be used to convene at this international event? And is there anything you want to say about the ESA Horizon Europe split and the link between the work that you do in UK Space Agency and the work that UKRI do, I guess, domestically as a parallel to that?
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. I think I can talk to the ESA relationship, but there is quite a structural split between ESA and Horizon, and for good reason. I think they offer two different opportunities, although they tackle a similar problem, which is convening international partnerships and consortiums to deliver demonstrators and supply chains for commercial rollout. ESA are really the lead space agency. So while we're the first national space agency, ESA have been at Mobile World Congress for the last few years, working with GSMA, especially to develop the NTN element of the conference as well. For us, ESA is a chance, brings together all of the national delegates. So they're essentially a facilitator for all of the national delegates within Europe to support our various industries. And we do that at best through working in partnership with one another and having a funding operator able to speak to other funding operators around Europe is a really fast way and effective way of supporting that collaboration. I think that's separate to and slightly different in objective to Horizon Europe. So I can't really speak more about that particular piece.
Thanks, Henny. And hopefully that clarifies. And I think it's good to note the general interest, I think, in the chat around deepening European cooperation. And I think whether we do that through Horizon, as discussed, or through ESA, please do look out for ways and know that we are partnering as UK government and supporting that in terms of the government's overall priority to deepen our relationship with European partners on research and innovation in these issues, and that we're keen to support you to do that. There is a point in the chat, I guess more a point than a question, but praise for DBT's UK catalogue at MWC 2025, which is always nice to hear for finding UK telecoms companies. There should be more entries for UK SATCOMs companies. So I think perhaps that's something we can take away out of this webinar between Graham and Henny and make sure that we're covering the ground as well as possible, or perhaps not the ground. We're covering the atmosphere as well as possible and taking in those non-terrestrial interests as well. I think then a question for Gary, which was to say we've shared the Business Connect link, which has been useful. Could we, are there any tips you have for growing the company through involving in communities and networks, presumably to broker connections and partnerships? Is there anything that Innovate UK hosts that could be helpful in that respect that you'd like to highlight, Gary?
Yeah, no, so not a specific one that I'm aware of right now, Catherine, but in a general sense, I mentioned Innovate UK Business Connect, the link we shared. And again, the purpose of what they do is to connect communities together. And so periodically, I don't know, there's one on the horizon, we will run collaborative events to bring people together, either for particular funding competitions when we encourage people to meet and work together, or to make business connections. So do keep alive to that, and mailing lists are very worth doing. And again, I'll stress that building communities, sharing knowledge and encouraging knowledge transfer we see as core. And I've always seen in the time I've been in the innovation agency that most companies, they understand that, and they understand that overprotecting IP in the early pre-competitive stages can slow things down. So generally, this really vibrant UK community, people do want to find a way to share. So pitch in through that community and reach back out to us if that's not clear at all.
Thanks, Gary. And I guess most of you probably know it because you found your way to this webinar, but I would also highlight the UK Telecoms Innovation Network in that regard as a good means of brokering connections across the ecosystem in the UK. And I know that they're also keen to support that internationally. So in addition to what Innovate UK is doing, please do look out for initiatives and connections through UKTIN. A question, will I be able to engage with Innovate UK at MWC? Gary, will you be there?
Yeah, I'll be there personally. So yeah, I represent the whole of the kind of digital and technology sector. So with one caveat that I won't be talking the deep technical detail of everything because my brain couldn't cope with that, and quantum and semiconductors and so on. But absolutely, I will be there for some or all of it. Please do reach out, come meet us, and we'll make the connections with the wider teams that we have.
Thank you very much. And I think that everyone on all of the panelists on the call will actually be at MWC. So there's an opportunity to speak to all of us in person, and we hope to see you there. I think that is probably most of the questions that we have in the chat. I can see that people are continue to be interested and engaged on the question of Horizon Europe and how that fits together with ESA funding. So I think definitely one for us collectively to take away from this call. There are MWC 25 awards, or GLOMOs, which are announced as a shortlist on the 10th of February, and it's worth looking at who wins those prestigious awards. Give you an idea of who to talk to, and good luck to any UK participants and nominees for those. If no other immediate questions, then I might just take the opportunity to perhaps ask each of the panelists for one thing they are looking forward to and one tip that they might want to share with others ahead of MWC and maximising the opportunities there. And Henny, I might come to you first. Okay.
Thanks. So I think what I'm looking forward to is quite straightforward. Every year we see satellite communications have a bigger and bigger presence at Mobile World Congress. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens this year, especially from some of the larger operators who are really able to showcase this particular part of the sector. My tip, which I've adhered to myself for the last 2 years, is wear comfy shoes. No one's looking at your shoes, but they're so important because you will cover so many miles.
Thanks, Henny. Gary, what are you looking forward to, and what's your tip to others?
Yeah, so what I'm looking forward to, if I can speak personally, I'm just energized by meeting people and hearing about tech that I've never seen before. I love the vibrancy of the innovation community, so I will get uplifted by seeing things that I've not understood. So really looking forward to that, the breadth of it. The tip, if I can give a tip a bit beyond just the event itself, I will say in the UK kind of ecosystem of innovation support, there's lots of bits to it. You've got UKSA here, we've talked about catapults, there are various other bodies. My advice would be sometimes people overthink that and think there's a lot in there, they don't know how to access it. Don't worry, just access by any point. All of those agencies have relationships with each other. UK Space Agency, I'll wander past their office in a little while, and we do swap and signpost with each other. So just treat it as an interchangeable network if you're unsure how to engage with it, and we will try and help point you in the right directions. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Good advice. And Graham, are you looking forward to it? And what's your tip to anyone who's going on?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think what energizes me at these sort of events is just to see the strength of what the UK companies do, and it's just a real testament to the determination and drive and skills and funding and regulation and government support all kind of coming together in really world beating offers. So that's great. I think my tip would be pack for a very wide range of weathers and get some nice tapas down you at some point. That's what I would say.
I agree with all of those tips, and I'm really looking forward to it myself. I'll have a number of colleagues there from DCIT as well. So I think in addition to all of what you've said, which is completely right, and I really look forward to seeing the kind of innovations that are happening in the UK and more broadly to seeing what's out there globally. I always find it a really good opportunity to meet with international counterparts that we engage with a lot, but on the same time zone. It's a really great opportunity to see people from further afield that normally you're either up very early or very late, or they are, and it's really nice to have a chance to meet them in person. And my tip is give yourself time between meetings because it is huge. If you haven't been before, I don't think you can underestimate the scale of how enormous MWC is, and getting in between all of the halls needs you to put a bit of time in your schedule. So for those who are first timers, totally agree with Henny on the shoes, but also make sure you've got enough time to get in between places. Which I guess brings me to conclude by saying we really hope to see you at MWC. We will all be, when we're not out and about elsewhere, our sort of physical home will be in the UK Innovation Pavilion, which is in Hall 7, if you consult your map when you get there. As I mentioned at the beginning, there are 2 other webinars in this series that have been organised by the UK Telecom Innovation Network. The next one is on the role of new UK technologies and connectivity. We've touched a bit on that today with space, but there's a lot happening, and you'll get to hear from some experts on that. And that's on at Tuesday, the 21st of January, again in this lunchtime slot, 12 to 1. And then a final session on building blocks for effective future networks in the UK. And that's on the 18th of February, again, 12 to 1. So do look out for those next sessions. I just want to say thank you very much to Graham, to Henny, and to Gary for joining us, and thank you to everybody who joined and for the questions that you've posed. I can see there's been another request also to share the DBT catalogue that some colleagues have found useful, so we'll make sure that we are doing that and signposting it. It's really helpful for us to hear what's of interest to you, so thank you very much for your really active engagement in this session. I hope we have left you looking forward to Barcelona and the opportunities that I think come from collaborating internationally there. But also I hope what we've demonstrated is that we have really high ambitions for the UK and these technologies. We think there's brilliant research and innovation and industrial capability in this country around future telecoms. And we are trying to join up across government to support you to innovate and to grow and to collaborate with international partners. And we really wish you the best of luck as you do that. We'll see you in Barcelona, and please get in contact with us in the meantime if there's anything else that we can support you with on your growth journey. And thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.